Hey everyone, it's Schmuckles. Don't mind my hair, I just woke up. We need to talk. Mathieu Cote recently did an interview where he kind of teased the next licensed content to come into Dead by Daylight. I made a playlist for all the theories that we've talked about up to this point. It's called Chapter 27 Rumors. All the theories that we talked about in those videos are still applicable to Chapter 27. I'm not really going back on my word here, but this video is going to kind of build off of those theories. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. I'm also live on Twitch right now streaming Dead by Daylight, link for that in the description below. If you recall, in the last video I said that I think that Alien or Jason are the most likely licenses for Chapter 27. We really did dig into why Alien is possible in Dead by Daylight in this video right here. Even in that video there, we talked about how Amazon inherited the Chucky and Candyman rights, and we think that that could be a way that Candyman could be licensed into Dead by Daylight. I'm trying to figure out which license is most likely for Chapter 27, and dusting off old theories like that Candyman theory could technically be applied to Chapter 27. But anyways, let's talk about the new stuff. There's a lot to talk about. Dead by Daylight Dev says players will be surprised by future collaborations, and this is not just the dev, this was Mathieu Cote. This is the game director of Dead by Daylight and like the head of licensing and partnerships. So Mathieu Cote, the head of partnerships at Behavior, sat down with Dexter Toe to talk about what's next to Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight Dev reveals more game crossovers are coming. So what goes into a partnership, and how does the likes of Hellraiser and Silent Hill come to join the ranks? And Cote said it's certainly a complex situation as we have an array of partners. Thankfully, we have great relationships built on trust with all of our partners. We asked if Dead by Daylight could look outside of horror for its next character inspiration. Yes, of course, though the shortlist is getting shorter, Cote reveals. The range of options is wider than it's ever been. We've done comedy with Ash Williams, and we've done anime with Attack on Titan, and I'm gonna argue right now that Trickster really is just kind of showing us that anything is possible in this game. You'd be surprised to hear some of the conversations we're having right now, Cote teases. So it almost certainly seems like Mathieu Cote is talking about an upcoming collaboration, and I really just sat down and I was thinking, okay, we think that Alien and Jason are what's most likely. That's kind of where we left things off. I want us to bring some interesting facts to your attention. The last time Cote said that we would be surprised or pleasantly surprised about a license, we got Silent Hill. So it wasn't necessarily like the biggest license or something that people could guess. It was more of a pleasant surprise, is the way that Cote worded that.
We gotta be very careful about which licenses we bring in, and we want them to be a surprise. I think that Silent Hill is a surprise to a lot of people. People did not expect us to go get that. I was kind of proud of that one. I think we all were. It's kind of a big deal. So yeah, there will be other licenses, and they will be absolutely mind-blowingly awesome. So yeah.
We know that BioShock and Until Dawn are really hyped video game properties, and people would be really surprised. Like, this not like Alien, Jason, or Slenderman, or like some really big IP like that. So I think like surprise video game licenses are definitely possible, like Until Dawn or BioShock, or even The Evil Within, you could argue. I wanted to go over this interaction because I do think it's kind of telling with Steve Barton, the owner of the Art the Clown IP. He said, so Mathieu Cote and Dead by Behavior, have the fans been loud enough yet? Someone responded to him and said, I think a lot of us would buy. Realistically, I don't think Mathieu Cote would reply to you this openly because NDAs are always a thing and chapters take close to a year to get done, so try reaching out privately. And they kind of linked like the contact us through the Behavior Interactive website. Steve Barton said, I've contacted them privately several times over the previous couple of years, including recently, no answer, balls in their court. And Steve Barton also went on to say, like, you know, between Art and the Pale Girl, Vicky, Sienna, Jonathan, and the rest of the gang, there may just be enough content for a standalone Terrifier video game. And this tweet did really well. That is a lot of likes. So Mathieu Cote is teasing that they're in collaboration with someone right now. We think, based on the King's interview, that it's Chapter 27, and now we know it's going to be something that's going to surprise us. We also know that they're not hitting up Art the Clown. They're not responding to Steve Barton about that IP. So one could argue, based on that information, that there's really no shortage of possible collaborations for Dead by Daylight. Like, do you really think if they had something like the Tall Man lined up for Chapter 27 and we kind of had no plans for any licensed content, they would be ignoring Steve Barton in a situation like this? This gets me really excited because it seems like we have standards. There are the really hyped IPs, and I think that we haven't really transitioned into reaching out or responding to the more niche license holders. I mean, that's kind of what Steve Barton is telling us here. There's not really a shortage of licenses. There's something in the works right now, so we could kind of expect a bigger license than Art the Clown for Chapter 27 based on this line of thinking. But which license is most likely? It's got to be something that's really going to excite the fans. We've already talked about Jason and Alien as a possibility. What other collaborations could secretly be in the works right now at Behavior? I thought this was kind of interesting. Behavior Interactive recently did a collaboration with the Jurassic World IP. I'm not saying Jurassic World would be the next chapter, but this is a Universal Studios IP, and we know that of the hyped licenses, there are some Universal IPs in there. For example, The Thing is a Universal Studios IP. Could Behaviors interactive with the Jurassic World franchise and getting familiarized with that IP and those license holders at Universal kind of open the door to a possible secret collaboration with a Universal IP like The Thing. Two other kind of more wildcard IPs that cross my mind that seem like they could be possible are the Terminator and Kayako. For Terminator, we know that Behavior's already worked with those license holders for the failed game Death Garden. Like, the Terminator was kind of a surprise IP that they were introducing into that game. And I wonder if they could kind of leverage that relationship with the Terminator license holders to bring that in as a surprise chapter. Like, that definitely seems like it could be possible. And of course, in this video, we're going to talk about a variety of IPs. Take it all with a grain of salt. We're just trying to figure out what could be next in the game. For Kayako, even though Kayako is, some people would argue, is very similar to Sadako. Like, why not just have Kayako as a skin for Sadako? For all the collaborations we've seen in the game, Behavior's either picked Western licenses or Japanese licenses. We've seen Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Sadako, and Attack on Titans. These are all Japanese IPs, and they keep bringing them in, so I have to think that the player base and the money that they make from the Japanese community in Dead by Daylight has got to be huge. Money talks. If the chapter is going to make them a lot of money, they're probably going to make it its own thing, even if it is similar to something else that they have in the game already. So I'm not saying I think Kayako is the most likely, but Kayako has to be in the discussion for sure. For Slenderman, I keep seeing these kind of original takes on Slenderman. Like, we talked about how in Phasmophobia, Slenderman can appear in 5 different locations on this map. Crypt TV just teased a new project with a creature that looks really similar to Slenderman, but it's definitely not licensed through the Slenderman IP owners. It makes me think that there's a lot of different avenues where an original version of Slenderman is also possible on DVD. But it really does seem like here Cote is referencing a licensed Chapter 27. There's kind of 2 ways to make sense of the clues that we saw with Steve Barton as well as this interview with Mathieu Cote. One is there's a really big license in the works because they're not reaching out to the more niche licenses yet. And 2 is they're working on an IP that it's going to be a pleasant surprise, and it's not necessarily like the most hyped license out there, but I think that it would be a step above a niche license. If you want to know which licenses are most hyped in Dead by Daylight, we actually just did a video on that. You can click the title above if you want to see that video. Recently, Dead by Daylight just did an open beta with Dead by Daylight Mobile. This was their second time doing this. They did the same thing 3 months ago as well. They did this like open beta event on Dead by Daylight Mobile. Through Dead by Daylight Mobile, there actually was a survey where they asked, are there any IP works you're expecting Dead by Daylight Mobile to collaborate with in the future? This survey was released 3 months ago when the Dead by Daylight beta test happened, and then it was released last month as well, the exact same survey. And this exact same question appeared on the survey with the exact same IP. So let's take a look at some of the IPs on this list. If we're looking for like a bigger license that is not necessarily more niche, on this first page here, it looks like Five Nights at Freddy's and Alien are 2 licenses that kind of fit that bill. We can also see the Dead Space video game here. Attack on Titan, I don't think is in Dead by Daylight Mobile. We saw The Last of Us, though we don't think the next big license is going to be The Last of Us because of information we talked about in this video. We also see the Walking Dead TV series here. We did not see Chucky, Pennywise, Slenderman, or Candyman on this list, which I found kind of interesting. Like, why are those big licenses just missing from this recent survey? If this first survey happened 3 months ago, that is consistent with the timing of Eric Pope coming onto Dead by Daylight with his connections as well at 20th Century Studios. Alien and FNAF are by far the biggest IPs on this list, so is this survey somehow going to be telling of things that are in the works or things that they were trying to get going at the time if they had options? So I'd say that FNAF kind of has to be in the conversation for Chapter 27, maybe not the front runner. All the Jason theories that we talked about in the previous video, while they're still valid, Behavior and those license holders would have had to have gotten to work like right away as soon as possible. And do we think that both parties are motivated enough to have started working on that collaboration as soon as possible? I could see arguments for both sides. For me right now, Alien or Predator seem like kind of the clues could be suggesting that they're working on something really crazy like that. We've already talked extensively about all the Alien theories. Now we're seeing that Alien is one of the biggest IPs that's appearing on the survey, and other IPs were just absent on that survey. Maybe those IPs weren't on the survey there because while they are on the shortlist for Behavior, it's not really possible, or somehow the licensing is not happening. I found it interesting that Predator wasn't on that list. But to me right now, it seems like Alien might have been the front runner. We didn't even see Jason on that survey either. Another interesting point that someone brought up to me is if Chapter 27 is Alien or Jason, do you think they would bring in a new map with that chapter? To me, the answer to that question is yes. Like, if they didn't bring in a new map with Jason or Alien, that would be a huge opportunity missed. In general, with a lot of the licensed chapters in Dead by Daylight, they are bringing in new maps. The only one I could think of off the top of my head that doesn't have a map is Ghostface. And of course, that wasn't even licensed through the official Scream franchise. I think if they're bringing in a big IP, they're gonna probably bring in the iconic map with it too. We've already seen 2 maps this year in Dead by Daylight. There's the Garden of Joy and then the new night map, and that's not even counting the RPD variants that came in. That's a lot of time and resources being allocated towards new maps. In the recent past, they haven't really brought in new maps every chapter. It's been closer to like every other chapter. So the fact that they probably would bring in a new map for one of those really big licenses like Alien, Jason, or Predator, does that in a way kind of suggest that chapter 27 isn't one of those licenses because they've already brought in so many maps this year? Maps are something that take a long time to develop. Dave Richard actually talked about it during this interview, and I think that this information is relevant to what's coming for chapter 27.
When we look into creating new maps, of course, maps are gigantic assets. They take a lot of energy and team bandwidth. And so we can only do so much in a year. So obviously there's a lot of thought process on when we should do it. Usually we want to make sure that we will create a new environment that have not been seen before in Dead by Daylight. So if a license, for example, or a new chapter would be too close to a team map that we already have, we would pass. We also want to make sure that in the gameplay, we can feature something that's going to be playable in our metrics. So, and make sense and would be fun. So sometimes maps or environment from a license would be not adequate for proper gameplay, so we would need to pass. Also, sometimes there competition between our different chapter, and we have to select, even though everything works, we have to select just 2. So we take what is most iconic.
If I had to pick right now the top 5 licenses in order based on all this information of what's most likely for chapter 27, this is my order right now. Number 5 is Kayako or Five Nights at Freddy's. And that's just going back to the amount of money that the Japanese licenses have made in DBD, as well as the combined facts of Behavior not reaching out to the niche license holders, and the fact that FNAF was one of the biggest, most hyped licenses on that mobile survey that happened last month. For me right now, number 4 is Terminator. There's a lot of opportunity for skins in a chapter like that. The Terminator theories seem to make the most sense to me if they're going to bring in a licensed chapter, not necessarily with a map. If we're going to see a surprise license for chapter 27 with no new map, I think Terminator kind of fits that profile. Behavior already had a collaboration with those license holders in a game that ultimately failed. So do we think that Behavior could surprise us with a Terminator chapter for chapter 27? Number 3 is Jason Voorhees, and that's just based on everything that we talked about in the previous video. Number 2 is Predator. I think that Predator would be kind of a surprise license that people wouldn't really expect. Based on our most hyped licenses research, Predator is a hyped license, but not necessarily like top tier. I find the level of hype and surprise to be consistent with the Silent Hill chapter when Cote kind of used similar wording to describe that chapter. Number 1 for me right now is Alien. We've just seen too many possible avenues for Behavior to lock down that IP. And now Cote's talking about new licenses and the fact that we're going to be surprised. I think Alien really fits that description. Alien is a top 5 most hyped IP. On top of that, Alien was one of the biggest licenses that was listed on that DBD mobile survey from last month and 3 months ago. So do you think that they'd surprise us with an Alien collaboration that they could have started working on months ago? I think there are some really plausible avenues for a really big license to come in for chapter 27. If there is a really big license coming for chapter 27, would they tease it early? The last license of last year for DBD was Sadako. They revealed the Sadako chapter before Christmas break. I think it was about 3 months early. Every single chapter was being leaked, so maybe they revealed it so it didn't get leaked over Christmas break. We didn't get any really crazy leaks for that night chapter, so maybe they found the internal leaker within Behavior and they're going to be able to tease chapters as normal going forward. Because we didn't get any crazy leaks for the night, and then we don't have any information on chapter 27 either. If the leak problem has been solved within Behavior, we might not get any teaser till much closer to the chapter. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. What are your top 5 picks if we're assuming that chapter 27 is licensed? This is my top 5 or top 6. Do you agree with this list right here? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. I'm also live on Twitch right now streaming DBD, link for that in the description below. That is it for this video. Goodbye.